Well, the Dalai Lama, of course, came last Thursday. How many people had an opportunity to be at either one or two of the venues? Wow, very good. We're so lucky. I mean, usually it's like, Yankee Stadium or something like that with, 60,000 of your closest friends. So even the pavilion was very intimate in terms of his usual venues. So I found him really inspiring. Just thinking about his life. The 4 decades. I think he left Tibet in 59. So greater than 4 decades. In all those years, he basically was working with unfavorable conditions, you could say. Was up against it. Trying to, the best that he could, advocate for his people. And in one way you could look at it, he's not having much success. Tangible success. So I'm so inspired by the fact that I cannot detect bitterness, anger, or anything, like that. 43 years of bumping your head against really difficult conditions. And his message, kindness, compassion, the hope for humanity. It's just so beautiful. What a kind of world treasure he is. I like the way he's a Buddhist monk. So, but when he knows the audience that he's talking to, so he was very secular in his message, in this sense. But he was weaving all the basic Buddhist principles through everything that he said. Talking about impermanence, talking about, facing death directly, talking about suffering, the benefits of compassion, etc. So it was, I just felt inspired by him as a person and his continuing message. So what is this compassion? A definition that I like is a quivering of the heart in response to suffering. One's own suffering or the suffering of others. Compassion is really relational. Its meaning also means to suffer with or suffer alongside of. It's one of the 4 beautiful emotions that the Buddha talks about and the Dalai Lama talks about endlessly. Loving kindness being one, which is the extension of friendliness indiscriminately, not just your best pals, kind of cultivating that capacity. Sympathetic joy being another one. Actually cultivating the capacity to take joy in the happiness of others, not envy, Another is equanimity, a kind of balanced acceptance of the way things are. And within that acceptance, the heart remaining open. And then there's compassion. In thinking about compassion over the years, it would seem that in order for it to fully flower, just power out powerfully, there's got to be a really good measure of self-compassion or self-kindness there. There can be compassion without that, but it just doesn't have the full potential and juice unless there's a measure of kindness to ourselves. So, this self-compassion, what are some ways that we can begin to explore it? Self-judgment. I mean, self-kindness or compassion requires that we learn to work with self-judgment in some way. That kind of negative inner commentary that sometimes takes us over. It requires that we embrace, more directly what it is to be a human. Our frailties, our foibles. I mean, we're not going to get it all perfect. It just doesn't happen. And we try and we miss things and we act in certain ways because of our fears and our frailties, really. And it requires even more than just stopping the self-judgment. It requires that we learn and cultivate ways to comfort ourselves when we're wounded, when we're hurting, when we're in pain. And actually, it requires that we somehow find a way to allow ourselves to be emotionally moved by our own pain. Kind of starting right at home. So when you're able to feel warm and tender feelings about yourself, you're actually altering your bodies and your mind. Those warm and tender feelings, when we can generate them, oxytocin is released. The new kind of buzzword chemical that all the researchers are talking about and measuring. And there's other ones with it, but that's the one that gets the main kind of the most attention. When oxytocin is released, there's increased feelings of all kinds of wonderful emotions. Trust, there's calm, there's safety, generosity, there's a feeling of connectedness. There's a greater ability to feel warmth and compassion for ourselves and for others. Fear and anxiety are reduced when oxytocin is activated. And blood pressure and all the things that happen when we're stressed by virtue of the release of cortisol in our system are relaxed with oxytocin. Cortisol is kind of like the opposite. It can make us old faster than our time, and it can make us sick if we're just under those stress chemicals. And there's all kinds of research on this now. Something as simple as hugging, getting a hug, releases oxytocin. But even more than that, you can get the same release of oxytocin by hugging yourself. I mean, because your body doesn't know the difference. If you just do this for a couple minutes, it releases. And not only that, they found that if you just think about hugging yourself for a little bit of time, it gets released. What a deal. Doesn't cost anything. And they have other research about it, those of you who have pets, that a couple of minutes of just being kind of quiet and relaxed, petting your pet, the oxytocin is not only released in you, it's released in the pet. So you got this kind of, if your pets are mammals, I don't know if it works for reptiles. It does? I don't know, maybe turtles, lizards. I had lizards when I was a kid. They seemed to like being kind of stroked a little bit. Something was released. More research is always required. So you can soothe through tactile methods. You can also make changes on how you talk to yourself internally. You know? But it's like everything else, it requires mindfulness. That's what this practice is about, knowing what's happening when it's happening. So if you can recognize when critical self-talk is happening, and for me, I know I've used the analogy here before, it's like the CNN crawler. You know, like something might be happening that would seem, you know, positive. You get a compliment or someone's name. You know, and then the little crawler sometimes comes up. But, you know, they may say this about you now, but later they're going to say, you know, something like this. That little crawler streaks across there. But if we can actually recognize when that critical voice is activated, we then have the opportunity to actually change the tone. We can soften it, and we can actually learn to converse with ourselves, finally, in the way that maybe a really good friend would talk to us. You know, using terms of endearment. Like, oh, sweetie, you're really hurting today. You know, I get that you're really trying and things are not working. But yeah, you'll get through this. It's all right. You've done this before. Take some breaths. Feel what's happening. It comes. It goes. You're human. It's all right to be afraid. It's all right to be, you know, anxious about this. You know, we'll work this through. Instead of, here you go again. You can't, you know, you're all worked up. You're not getting this done. You can't think straight. What's the matter? You know. It's a whole different internal dialogue. So we've got these inner critics that won't quit, but we also have the capacity to cultivate, strengthen our inner soothers. And when you think about it, so many of the meditation practices that you've learned and that are available are really about that soothing quality. And that's really where my focus is. So if you can come on Saturday, we'll work on those soothing voices and capacities. Another way for cultivating some power and self-compassion is the contemplation of that larger human condition. Tonglen practices and the meditation that we're going to go through has some of that aspect in it. It kind of opens our perspective a little wider when we can really kind of feel the greater humanity in our connection to it. You know, when we're just focusing on our shortcomings, everything kind of narrows down. The perspective gets really tight. And so in some way we could say that spiritual practice and meditation is a gradual and continuing reinforcement of a larger, broader perspective and connection with everything in this creation. We're not really alone. And when we can cultivate ways of feeling that connection, great benefit. This is from the Dalai Lama. He says, every day, think as you wake up. Today I am fortunate to be alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I'm going to have kind thoughts towards others. I'm going to try not to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. And that's a beautiful, noble intention. And I think he's manifested it about as well as anybody, but he'd probably be the first to admit, well, I fall down. It doesn't happen. But what is the compassion may not be available, but what is available or can be available is our intention. We can really develop an intention. Maybe it doesn't manifest perfectly all the time, but that's the beginning. So how do you cultivate more compassion? For ourselves and for others. Can we just all of a sudden will it? Say, okay, I'm going to do it. Well, maybe some people can. Some people need a little more. Or maybe we repress or suppress the certain negative emotions, in some way, and then we can be compassionate. But that's, yeesh, that sounds horrible, But as usual, this practice can offer us ways to really touch into it. So I'd like to invite you to sit comfortably but alert, and I'll guide you through a more or less classic meditation to cultivate compassion. So just rest easy in your breath, breathing. Feel in your heartbeat the life that you've been given. Just feel how you treasure your own life. And how sometimes you guard yourself in the face of sorrows. Just take a moment or two to feel into it. This treasured life. Now bring to mind someone who you dearly love. If you're able to work with images, bring an image of that being. Could be a pet, person. If imaging isn't your thing, just a felt sense of what it's like to be around them. What does that feel like? Then let yourself be aware of their sorrows, their measure of suffering in life. Just feel how your heart opens to wish this loved one well. To extend comfort to them, to even share their pain, meeting it with compassion. This is the natural response of the heart. This isn't anything odd or manufactured. And I'm going to recite some phrases, and you can, of course, make up your own, that may enhance the experience a little bit. In your own mind, you might use the name of this person. May you be held in compassion. May you be free from pain and sorrow. May you be at peace. And just recite that over slowly, feeling the extension of the heart to that loved one. May you be held in compassion. May you be free from pain and sorrow. May you be at peace. Extending your care and wishes to that being for a few moments more. And now turn your compassionate heart toward yourself and your measure of sorrows that you carry. May I be held in compassion. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I be at peace. May I be held in compassion. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I be at peace. Continue with the phrases toward yourself, recognizing the wounds, the pain, the sorrows, and extending that care that you would to someone you love deeply, to yourself. As the Buddha said, there's no one more worthy of love than yourself. Now, extend that care to your friends or other loved ones. You may catch an image of a particular friend or loved one, recognizing their particular flavor of suffering. And extending to them, may you be held in compassion. May you be free from pain and sorrow. May you be at peace. And now extending that care outward to the brotherhood and sisterhood of all beings. Including all those other humans, and all those other creatures who share this biosphere. And feel, if you are able tonight, as the Dalai Lama said, that warm-hearted connection with all beings. That wish for their safety. That wish for the reduction of their pain and sorrows and the causes of that pain and sorrow. And finally now, allow your heart to become a transformer for the sorrows of the world. Feel the breath in the area of your heart now. Breathing in and out through the heart. Feel the kindness of that heart. And envision that with each breath you can breathe in the pain and sorrows of the world and breathe out compassion. Choosing living beings that you know first, loved ones. Breathing in their pain and sorrow, breathing out compassion. One, then another. With each breath, with each in-breath, allowing their sorrows to touch your heart and turn into compassion, extended on the out-breath. Wishing them all well. Extending caring and the mercy of your heart. May you be held in compassion. May you be free from pain and sorrow. May you be at peace. And as you begin, and as you breathe, begin to envision, if you can, your heart as a purifying fire that can receive the pains of the world and transform them into the light and warmth of compassion. Be gentle with yourself. Let the fire burn gently in your chest. If you struggle in any way, let the fire burn away all the obstacles to compassion so your heart returns to its naturally generous, open, fearless state. If you feel ready, Breathe in the sorrows of those that are hungry. Breathe in the sorrows of those that are living in areas of war. Breathe in the sorrows of those languishing in prison. Breathe in the sorrows of those who are sick. With each out-breath, picture living beings everywhere. And breathe out that healing, soft balm of compassion. With every in-breath, allow, if you are able, the sorrows and pain to touch your heart. With every out-breath, over and over, extend care and mercy. So now just sit quietly for a moment. Let your breath and heart rest naturally as a center of compassion in the world. And so compassion is one of the beautiful mysteries of this existence, worthy of your attention and really worthy of your earnest effort to cultivate it to its full potential. And I'll end with just a few words from the Dalai Lama. Never give up. No matter what is going on, never give up. Develop the heart. Too much energy in your country is spent developing the mind instead of the heart. Be compassionate, not just to your friends, but to everyone. Be compassionate. Work for peace in your heart and in the world. Work for peace. And I say again, never give up. No matter what is going on around you, never give up. So thank you for your attention. And may the blessings of the Dalai Lama and all contemplatives open your hearts wider and wider and wider. If you're watching the debates, send compassion to those people. And if you're watching the baseball game, send compassion to those people.